into On the Mark with Anita Marks. That is me, and this is our NFL Draft Special, getting you locked and loaded for Thursday night. Of course, our sponsor, 500 Level, with us for the entire ride. Pay attention to the t-shirts that I will be wearing throughout the show, first and foremost. All right, this is how the show is going to work. Connor Rogers, one of the best in the business. You see him all over NBC Sports, Jets pre and post. That's what he hosts on SNY. He contributes on PFF. He has a mock draft that's out right now. That is going to be the skeleton of our show. We're going to go through his first 32 picks in the first round. We're going to spend a lot of time with the first 10 picks. Why? Because after pick 10, it's a magic carpet ride. You don't know what's going to happen. Certain guys are going to fall. Certain guys are going to be chosen that you're going to be like, who the hell is that? So we're going to do a deep dive into the first 10. Not only that, we are going to take you to the team's beat writers. They're going to join us on the show and give us their perspective. Who do they feel is going to be selected? What teams that they cover, who do they think that their teams are going to take when they're on the clock? We're going to bring it all together, and I promise you that at the end of this show, you're going to be so in the know that come draft night, you're gonna be locked and loaded. You're gonna be ready. And if you want to spend some coin and maybe wager on a few of the things that you can wager on in the NFL draft, hopefully we will have fed you some winners. But before we get to Connor Rogers, again, a big shout out to our sponsor, 500 Level. And why? Well, iconic original graphic tees. That's why. 500 Level, live like a legend. They immortalize the legends of the game with iconic original graphic tees. 500 Level custom t-shirts typically print next business day and ship directly to your home. Sign up for fan points and begin earning on every purchase. MLB, MLS, NBA, NHL, UFC, WWE, and of course NFL. And keep in mind, as soon as your team selects that rookie player, don't run. Or I should say, don't walk, run to 500level.com because you'll be able to get your rookie player t-shirt lickety-split. And on top of that, use my code. That's Marks20 for 20% off 500level.com. 500level, live like a legend. And again, make sure you go to them to get your rookie shirt once your team does select their player. So without further ado, let's go to Connor Rogers. All right, Connor, this is the time of the year where you shine. Hence why I wanted you on the program. You know how much I love the draft. Maybe not as much as you, but I love it enough. We're dedicating an entire show to getting people ready for Thursday night. So how excited are you for this draft?
I love it, Anita, especially just the surprise factor. It feels like after the first handful of picks, anything could happen. Trades, surprise slots. We're all waiting to see where Shedeur Sanders goes if that's the first round. So I think the drama is the best part.
All right, so again, why don't you let the folks know, what are you going to be doing on draft night? Where will you be? Where can they find, I know we're going to do a deep dive into your mock draft. Where can they find it in completion, all the things? Yeah,
so everything will be on NBC Sports. I have a top 320 already up, so the big board's there with all the rankings. We'll have a final mock draft the morning of the draft. And then I'll be jumping around. Thursday night, I'll be with Chris Sims. We'll be doing taped reactions for every pick. Friday night, I'll be with Matthew Berry. We'll be doing taped reactions for all the fantasy-relevant players. And then Saturday, I'll be live with Bleacher Report for rounds 4 through 7. So we're leaving nothing uncovered here, Anita. It's going to be a busy couple days.
I love it. I love it. And just so the folks know, right, like the meat and potatoes, the skeleton of this show is Connor's mock draft, but we're also going to take you to select cities and talk to certain beat reporters to get an idea of what they are thinking, what they are hearing, who they think those select teams are going to choose when it is time for them to be on the clock. All right, without further ado, Connor, let's dive into it. Pick number 1, Cam Ward. Everybody's got him going to Tennessee. Heck, you can't even wager on it. If you put $1 million down that Cam Ward is going to the Tennessee Titans, you'll only profit $5,000. That's how insane the odds are. So do we need to spend any more time on the fact that Cam Ward's going to Tennessee?
No, this is a lock. Like you said, Anita, it's basically been off the board in every market for weeks. Tennessee's almost come out and said it. Cam Ward will be the future for the Titans.
And do you feel that it's warranted? Do you feel if you were the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, Connor, would you take Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick?
I would, and he's the only quarterback in this class you can make that argument for, really in the top 10 picks, I think. With Cam, he's got a big arm, a dense body, good frame to take on contact. He can create plays, alter his arm angle, and I look at him. This is a need for Tennessee, obviously. I would have him ranked, with the quarterbacks that went after the first 3 last year. They still went in the top 12 when you were looking at Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, even Michael Penix. He's in that tier, so he's a really good prospect in his own right. Just a weaker quarterback class as a whole.
All right, so let's move on to pick number 2. A lot of people feel that this is where the draft begins. The Cleveland Browns will be on the clock, and many people have them selecting Travis Hunter, which a lot of scouts feel is the best player in this draft. Who do you have the Browns selecting it to?
Yeah, I'm going with those echoes right there. I think it'll be Travis Hunter. I think it's an interesting conversation. You almost can't go wrong with how gifted of a pass rusher Abdul Carter is. But if they take Hunter, I think they'd view him as their number 1 wide receiver. It'll be interesting to see how much defensive back he plays, whether that's at corner. I think he's got the skill set to be a rangy, ball-hawking free safety if he wanted to be. But I think at the end of the day, the Browns are going to try to upgrade both sides of the ball with 1 pick in my top player in this draft, in Travis Hunter.
It's interesting talking to a few scouts, Connor, in all the variety, the plethora of ways that you could utilize him. A number of scouts have said to me, you want to utilize him more at wide receiver than you do at corner. Because if you put him at corner, an offense could scheme to not throw his way. And we see that all the time in the NFL where they feel that he'd be more of an asset, right? On the offensive side of the ball being utilized as a wide receiver. So I know that there's the mindset out there is that he's the top corner available. But talking to a number of scouts, they're saying that really he would be better for a team as a better asset at wide receiver. Do you agree with that?
I do. Going back to last summer, I thought he was a better wide receiver prospect. This year, he made strides at corner that started to level the playing field, but I still look at him, Anita. I think right now he could be your number 1 wide receiver. I don't think he could be your number 1 corner right now. Maybe that changes with some development, which kind of makes me wonder, is there a world where he can be a number 1 wide receiver and he is hell-bent on playing on both sides of the ball? Can he be a rotational free safety? You can't be a rotational number 1 cornerback. That doesn't exist in the NFL. So ultimately, I think he will be the selection here, and I'm curious of the Browns' plan for him outside of just playing on the offensive side of the ball.
Connor, I want you to hang tight for a second. We're going to take our listeners, our viewers, to Cleveland. Mary Kay Cabot, who's been covering this team for quite a while, Cleveland.com, The Plain Dealer, WKYC TV. She's got her finger on the pulse of this team better than most. Let's find out who she believes the Cleveland Browns are going to take it to. Everybody's anticipating the Tennessee Titans to take Cam Ward at 1. And Cleveland, I think they're sitting in a really good position where the best player in this draft very well could fall in their lap with Travis Hunter. So at 2, what do you anticipate? Who do you anticipate the Cleveland Browns taking it to?
Well, right now, with 2 days before the draft, that's exactly what I would say. I would say Travis Hunter at this point, because not only is he widely regarded as the best prospect in this draft, but you're also getting 2 for 1. You are potentially getting a Pro Bowl receiver and a Pro Bowl cornerback. And the Browns will use him on both sides of the ball, primarily as a receiver, but also as a cornerback. So I kind of think if you're not going quarterback there, you can't go wrong with Travis.
Yeah, listen, I hear you, and a number of scouts that I've spoken to feel that he is the best player in this draft. Just looking at the quarterback position, though, I'm really curious, right? Deshaun Watson, love me some Joe Flacco. Recently, you bring him back. You got Kenny Pickett, so it's a full quarterback room. But there are some folks out there who do believe that Cleveland could trade out of this number 2 pick and potentially accumulate some more draft picks where maybe they bring in a rookie quarterback to add to that quarterback room. Do you see the Cleveland Browns wheeling and dealing and possibly ending the first night on Thursday night with a skilled position player as well as a quarterback?
Well, if they were going to get a quarterback on that first day, they would have to come out of number 33 probably, their top pick in the second round, trade back up into the first round and grab a quarterback somewhere. And that's the tricky part about the whole thing. Yes, there has been some talk about the Browns fielding some calls and not slamming the phone down on people that are trying to trade up for number 2. But the other thing to consider is that maybe they trade up into the first round and get that quarterback. I don't know if they will do that or if they will just let the draft fall to them and they'll see who's still available at number 33 for them. But I wrote a column saying yesterday that I would actually be very aggressive and I would go up and I would grab Jalen Milroe. I've spent a lot of time studying Jalen Milroe, talked to him a fair amount at the Senior Bowl. I've talked to people that have coached him and who know him. The Browns offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, coached him at Alabama, so they have a head start on him. I really like the prospect. He's got a ways to go. He needs some seasoning, but I do think that with his traits, with his unbelievable speed, 4.37 in the 40, and a very, very strong arm, I think he's worth taking a chance on.
Interesting. So not only getting Travis Hunter with the number 2 pick, possibly trading back in the bottom of the first to get Milroe, which again, and I talk about this all the time, the advantage there is that you get that 6th-year option, right? With that rookie deal at quarterback, and especially a quarterback that many people you anticipate you're going to have to groom, and there's going to be a progression there.
Right, absolutely. Now, Andrew Berry mentioned the other day that the 5th-year option isn't really necessarily wildly important to him, but it is something. It is worth something. But even more so than that, if you're going to be going into the first round, you're going to be doing it to maybe get ahead of a team that you think might take the player that you like. The Steelers at 21 are poised to take some kind of a quarterback there unless they trade up. So you're really basically just trying to jump somebody so that you can get your man. Now, will the Browns do this? They're not usually a team that wants to trade up. They more so, they come from the analytics way of life, and they like to trade back and acquire extra picks. So I don't know if they would do that. And I also don't really know if Jalen Milroe would be their first choice among those second-tier quarterbacks that they have studied very thoroughly. Jackson Dart is in that camp. Tyler Shook is in that camp as well. So I'm not even sure if Jalen is the guy that they would have their eye on there, but he's the one that I would take just because of those reasons that I mentioned before. I think he's unique. I think he's a unicorn in his own right for his ability to run like the wind, score touchdowns that way, and then you take that unbelievable arm that he has and you keep working with it, and I think you'd really be onto something there.
It's interesting. Tyler Shook is getting a lot of buzz as we get closer and closer to Thursday. Mary Kay, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it.
Sure, thanks for having me.
All right, Connor, let's talk about the Giants. Now, this is a team that I'm very familiar with. I have my finger on the pulse of this team better than most. Again, assuming Travis Hunter and Cam Ward are off the board, Abdul Carter is sitting there. Many people feel that he's the comparison to Micah Parsons. But here's what the problem is. He's got a foot issue. And a few weeks ago, there were some reports that there were a number of NFL teams out there that felt like his foot is going to require surgery at some point in time. What I do know about this Giants medical staff is they are one of the most conservative in the NFL. And many of the time, they totally 86 for folks who haven't been in the service industry business. That means taking the player off the board because of medical concerns. If that's the case, I do believe the Giants are going to be sitting there trying to trade out of this number 3 pick. So I believe that the Giants are going to try to trade out. That's where I stand. Where do you stand? What do you believe the Giants are going to do at 3?
I could see what you're saying for sure, especially since they like their edge rush duo in Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. I think Carter has more upside than those guys, but if they can get a haul and not move too far back, teams are going to want to come up for Abdul Carter. It's as simple as that. A lot of teams view him as the number 1 player in the draft. It's between him and Travis Hunter. I think the Giants ultimately stay pat here and take the player, even though they feel good about their edge rush group. They feel like they'll have a dynamic trio of pass rushers. Obviously, you have Big Dexter Lawrence in the middle of the field. But I agree with you, Anita. I would say there's a non-zero chance that they at least answer the phone and see how teams are feeling about coming into this slot and what prices they can ultimately charge.
Yeah, and from what I understand, this is a draft where you don't want to trade up. If anything, you want to trade down because there's a lot of depth at the defensive line position. Again, Connor, I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to go to the Giants facility. We're going to talk to Paul Dottino, who's been covering the team for over 30 years. He's part of their broadcast team. Let's hear what Paul thinks his team, the New York Football Giants, are going to do with that number 3 pick. I truly believe the draft starts with the Giants at 3. Like, Cam Ward going to Tennessee at 1, Travis Hunter going to the Browns at 2. To me, it really starts with the Giants because, Abdul Carter is sitting there, and we've heard the analogy and the comparison to Micah Parsons, who's been absolutely spectacular for the Dallas Cowboys. But also what we do know is that Abdul Carter is dealing with a foot issue. Now, reports out there is that it's not bad. Some reports out there is it's really bad. One thing that you and I both do know, because I used to work for the Giants, is that their medical staff is one of the most conservative in the NFL. So with that being said, and again, we don't know, but if there are any red flags in regard to Abdul Carter in that foot, what do you think goes on in that war room in regard to the discussion about Abdul Carter?
Well, Giants trainer Ronnie Barnes, who has been doing this since I think Jim Thorpe played professional football, he will just immediately red flag anybody that he believes is a serious risk and literally pull him off the board. And that's the way it works with the Giants. The medical staff has the final say and the complete control over the eligibility of a guy on the draft board. Now, you're right. I heard coming out of the combine that Abdul Carter could easily drop to the mid-first round because there would be teams that would probably disqualify him from their board with that stress reaction in his foot. Subsequent to that, some of the crumbs I'm getting is that the foot has healed very well. It's done better than a lot of people think. And Joe Shane himself actually said at his Giants pre-draft presser the other day that as far as he's concerned, the foot would not be a barrier from drafting the player. Now, is he just trying to raise the level of the value of the 3rd pick because maybe he's thinking about possibly trading out? You and I can only guess about that. We know Drew Rosenhaus, Carter's agent, himself said the foot is progressing very well, but what is an agent supposed to say except what's good for his client? So I think there's still a lot of speculation to those of us who have not gotten the medical records from the recheck in Indianapolis that Carter underwent about a week and a half ago. But I'll say this, if Ronnie Barnes only yellow flagged him and did not pull him off the board, I think the Giants have a responsibility to take Carter if Hunter is gone at 2 and Ward is gone at 1.
I hear you. Odds makers in Vegas have Carter going to the Giants at -600. It's a little too rich for my blood. Shador Sanders at 3, Paul, at +475. Genty at 45 to 1. Campbell at 100 to 1. As well as Graham, a guy that I know you and I have discussed before. So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, okay, again, we don't know, we're not reporting anything, but potentially, let's just say if Carter is red flagged by the medical staff.
Yeah.
Giants also, it's also being reported, Paul, the Giants are looking to trade out of this number 3 pick. They want out. Now, also I'm hearing it's really hard to trade out because majority of people want to trade down. They don't want to trade up.
Correct.
So I get 2-part question. Let's just say hypothetically speaking, it's not Carter and they can't trade out, who's the next best selection for the Giants at 3?
Well, I think the next best guy on the board, by my estimation, and a lot of people agree with me, it's Mason Graham. The problem is he's a defensive tackle out of Michigan, and there are so many really good defensive tackles in this draft that you can get quality ones in the 2nd, 3rd, and probably even the 4th round. So do you shy away from Mason Graham and just simply take the best offensive lineman available, which a lot of people think is Will Campbell, the left tackle out of LSU? Either way, I don't think the Giants can go wrong if they take the best guy on their board at 3. You mentioned trade possibilities. The only way that I would trade out, and I don't think they're going to get the offer to trade out because, as you just said so well a minute ago, teams are not looking to move up. So you're not going to get a shopping cart load of picks. No one's giving you 10 double cheese pizzas to take that number 3rd selection. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to be forced to take the pick. But the candidates would be New England at 4 and Jacksonville at 5, because New England apparently wants Will Campbell very badly. And if you think moving down a spot, you can squeeze some juice out of New England, maybe you try to do that to move a spot. Or Jacksonville at 5, there's an awful lot of people who think they're a deadlock for Mason Graham. So if you're okay with that, and you can move down 1 or 2 picks and pick up an extra selection, I suppose that's possible. But I think the Giants are probably better off taking the best player on the board.
Last one for you, and that has to do with a quarterback, right? We know what the quarterback room looks like for the Giants. It's Russell Wilson, it's Jameis Winston, but, quarterback for the future is not in that room right now. There's some talk and speculation that if Jackson Dart is still on the board after the Pittsburgh Steelers select at 21, that maybe this is a Giants team that trades back into the first round to get Jackson Dart. Are you hearing anything in that regard?
Well, I can tell you, you obviously have read that the reports saying that Brian Daboll, the head coach, is very fond of Jackson Dart. I think Dart is the second best quarterback prospect in this draft, in my opinion, behind Cam Ward. Now, if you're going to do that, if you're the Giants, the 3 teams who are going to be looking to pick up extra picks from the middle of the first round down would be Atlanta at 15. They have 5 picks. Minnesota at 24. They only have 4 picks in this draft. And Washington at 29. They have 5 picks in this draft. All 3 of those teams have not only fewer picks than most other clubs, but they also have a gaping hole between the rounds of their picks. So I think those are teams that are certainly going to be looking to pick up extra draft collateral. Now, from what I understand, the going price, if the Giants were to try to get up into the late 3rd round, let's just say Minnesota or Washington, is probably going to be flopping their pick number 34, which is their 2nd rounder, with the 1st rounder of the other team, then have to give up their 3rd, one of their 3rds, probably their 1st one at 66, and then a 5th rounder. Now, if they truly believe that Jackson Dart or any of these other quarterbacks is going to be their guy of the future, then I think that's an okay price. I think you pay it. But there's one asterisk here, Anita, and that is this. If you do that, you're going to be giving up really sweet picks in the heart of this draft. The second day is so sweet in picks. The 3rd round, you're going to get so many really good players. You might even find some beautiful ripe tomatoes in the 5th round. Do you really want to give up those picks? I don't know. And then the other problem, of course, is this. There are a few other teams in this league who probably have the same idea as the Giants might. Trade up into the bottom of the 1st round and get that 5th-year option, which means there could be a bidding war between 2, 3, or 4 teams. How much of a bidding war do you want to get into? Because then you're going to be caught overpaying. And I don't think that's a good thing for the Giants at all.
It will be interesting to see how this all plays out, Paul. Really do appreciate your time. Why don't you let Giants fans know, where are you going to be on draft night? How can they follow you? How can they see you?
All right, Giants, at Giants WFAN on X. See, I'm updating myself. It's X. It's not Twitter anymore. And then, of course, you can always get me as part of the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel and media network. And aside from that, we'll be doing some special draft night shows Wednesday night on WFAN in New York, also on Sunday morning on WFAN in New York, and on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday during the draft, I'll be on Giants.com. We'll be doing some live programming there as well, which means, Anita, I'm not getting any sleep in the next 5 or 6 days.
I know you're loving every minute of this. Who are you fooling? Paul, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. Enjoy draft night.
Great to see you, Anita. Thank you.
All right, moving on to pick number 4, and you've got the Patriots sitting there. Drake May, Connor, you know I love my Drake May. Do need some protection.
Yeah, badly.
Is this where the Patriots take an offensive lineman?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of Will Campbell in this slot, Anita. And the other factor is, does a team come up and pay a massive price to take Ashton Genty here? They'd answer the phone. They would be open to trading out of 4. I think they'd be very open to it as long as they don't miss a tier of players that can really help their offense. But if they stay in the slot, it looks like the pick will be Will Campbell. The question now becomes, does he play left tackle for the Patriots, which he played in college, or does he eventually kick inside to left guard? That is to be determined later.
Out of curiosity, there's a few mock drafts out there that had Mimbu ahead of Campbell. The scouts I've spoken to said absolutely not. Where do those 2 offensive linemen sit in regard to your offensive line board?
I think Membu is more of a true tackle. Now, he is a right tackle. That's where he's played at Missouri. Why I like Campbell better at guard, but I think Campbell is the better player. So it's a matter of what you need. If you look at New England's offensive line, they need the help everywhere. They actually feel probably pretty good about right tackle because they signed Morgan Moses this offseason. So I think they're looking to upgrade the left side of their line, and that's where Campbell comes into play. So it's a matter of if you need a pure tackle in Membu or just the better player. I do agree with scouts that have Campbell higher, but there are legitimate questions with his arm length and wingspan if he can hold up at left tackle.
All right, then at 5, the Jags are sitting there, and there's a gentleman that I know you have them selecting at 5, and that's Mason Graham from, of course, Michigan. Boy, does he have some motor. I know that's a word we use quite frequently, but this guy is just like, he's unstoppable. And oh, by the way, you could wager that he's going to go in the top 5 at plus 155. You can wager that he's going to go to the Jags at 5 at plus 125. Why do you like Mason Graham going to the Jags at 5?
I think he's exactly what this defensive line was missing last year when their run defense really struggled. A big-bodied presence that's strong. He's got good hands, championship wrestler background where he's got that grip strength to get off blocks, hold double teams at the point of attack, and you brought up the motor as a pass rusher. Now, I will say, Anita, out of all the picks we've done, this is the door that's the most wide open. I've heard playmaker here. That could be Tyler Warren. That could be Tet McMillan. That could be Ashton Genty. And then everybody knows that they need help on the defensive side of the ball as well. And their front would look really, really good with Mason Graham in the middle of it. So I default back to who's the biggest help and the best player in this spot for them. But I think an offensive pick is also on the table here as well. Jacksonville is a true 50-50 coin flip team. I don't think anybody is sure what they're going to do.
Let me ask you this, because there's been some talk and some rumors out there that they're trying to trade Trevor Lawrence. Buying into that at all, Connor?
No, not at all. They hired Liam Cohen to help Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence will be there, I think, with Liam Cohen and maybe some new offensive playmakers after the full draft is over.
All right, again, I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to go to Jacksonville. Mike DeRocco is going to be joining us. He covers the Jags for ESPN. What is he hearing about the Jags selection and what he thinks they're going to do at 5? We'll be right back. All right, Mike, appreciate your time. And Jaguars on the board at 5. What are they going to do? They're going to be on the clock. Before we get into what you think their decision is going to be, there are some reports that they're shopping around Trevor Lawrence. Is there any truth to that?
Unless something's changed from, I think it was early February, when there's a report that they had kind of contacted the Steelers. And people I spoke with inside the organization were like, don't be stupid. We're not trading Trevor. But, you know, he also has a no trade clause in that contract. So, you know, one of the reasons Liam Cohen took the job was the chance to work with Trevor Lawrence. So at this point, I would be stunned if they move on from Trevor Lawrence. They've just kind of got him back to the point where he's healthy, throwing again. So there's really not been a ton of stuff that he's done with Liam Cohen. But I know from people I've spoken with that he's really excited about working with Trevor.
All right. So, and as you alluded to, like a whole new front office. So with that being said, like, who has the final say? You know, they're in that war room. They're sitting there at 5. Some really good players are still going to be on the board for them if they don't make any type of trade. Who do you feel has the final say in that war room for the Jaguars?
You know, they keep talking about how it's always going to be a collective decision. But my expectation is, you know, they hired James Gladstone to kind of turn this franchise around, and Liam Cohen as well, obviously. but they're trying different stuff with what they're doing now, with the way that they're approaching the draft, with the way that they're approaching the culture inside the building, and what Liam Cohen wants to do offensively and change the way, they run the ball here. But, James Cohen is going to be the guy that's going to run that draft. So I think if there's any kind of disagreement, and I have not heard that there has been on who they want to pick at this point, they'll work it out to, I guess, everyone's satisfaction. But if it comes down to the one guy, I would expect, James Gladstone to maybe have just a little bit more say.
All right, so in the mock draft that we're diving into right now, Cam Ward's gone at 1 to Tennessee. No surprise there. Travis Hunter to Cleveland. If the Giants can't trade out, Abdul Carter to them at 3. Will Campbell go to the Patriots. They need some protection, of course, for Drake May. So now with the Jags sitting on the clock, they're on the board at 5. Who do you believe the Jags are going to take?
I believe it's going to be Ashton Genty, the running back out of Boise State, which is a bit of a surprise. I see your reaction there. But I do know the Jaguars really value his running style, his physical toughness. That's been an element that's been missing from this organization for the last several years. And look, this new regime has to be bold with their first pick. It has to sort of set the tone for the rest of their tenure. And what they've talked about since they've gotten here is being stronger up front, being more physical, mentally, physically tough, running the football. We all know what Liam Cohen did with the Bucs running game, taking him from last in the league to 4th last year in his only season in Tampa Bay. So that's kind of what they want to do. And how many elite players are in this draft? A lot of teams only have 2 or 3 listed as elite guys outside of the quarterbacks. The Jags consider certainly Hunter and Carter elite. Ashton Genty is one of those guys that are next on the list, and they have needs everywhere. Obviously, if you're picking in the top 5, you do. But this is a chance to make a statement. It's a chance for them to sort of establish who they are and what they want to be. So that's why I think they go with Ashton Genty at 5.
Interesting. So you could wager that Genty goes at 5 at -110, and then there's Mason Graham at 2 to 1. Hypothetically speaking, let's say they don't go Genty. Do you see a world where they do go Mason Graham? He really extremely impressive. I know he's more in the interior line, but boy, the guy's got a motor and he is really unstoppable.
Yeah, they had massive issues with the interior pass rush the last several years. So he absolutely would certainly help, and he's been fantastic against the run. For Michigan. So I can see them going with Mason Graham there. He definitely fills a need. I can also see him go with Jalen Walker, the edge out of Georgia, and being able to now put 3 really good pass rushers on the field with Josh Hines Allen, Trayvon Walker, and then Jalen Walker. And that gives them a little bit of something that they can mix and match, move some guys around and try and create a little bit of havoc, because basically it was Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen the last 2 seasons and no other help. So Walker could be a guy to keep an eye on too.
And Walker's at +750. Mike, thank you so much. Let the folks know, where can they find you on draft night?
I'm going to be in the Miller Electric Center, buried in right outside the stadium there in the media room, watching the draft unfold. That's sort of where I hang out every year. It's draft night is crazy, and a lot of people think the draft really begins with the 5th pick with the Jaguars. So we'll see kind of where it goes from there and how that shakes out afterwards.
It will be fun. Mike, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so now we're looking at 6. It's the Raiders. A lot of people feel that this is where Shedeur Sanders can land. Do you, Connor?
No, I don't. I think the Raiders want to win now, and I think they feel like their win-now quarterback is the guy they paid and traded for in Geno Smith. Pete Carroll knows a thing or two about him. Pete knows this is probably his last head coaching stop in the NFL. There's urgency in Vegas to win, and Tom Brady is a part of that urgency as well. And what do you do when you're urgent to win? You help your trenches, and that's where Armand Membu comes into place at right tackle. This helps them run the football. I think they can get a starting running back on day 2 of this draft as well. We know they have a drop-back passer in Geno. So they go with the meat and potatoes pick here, Anita, by getting a right tackle for the long-term future.
So, by the way, you could wager that 3 to 1 that the Raiders take that offensive lineman. What's favored is the running back Genty at -125. Very interesting. Let's head to Las Vegas. Mitchell Renz from Chat.Sports. So Mitchell, first things first, right? You've got Pete Carroll there now, new head coach. I'm good friends with John Spytek, one of the nicest men on the planet. Out of curiosity, who do you think has the final say in that war room? Because when it was in Seattle, the reports were it was Pete Carroll.
Well, I do know that Tom Brady is also going to be in that war room, but if there's one thing that I've learned from listening to John Spytek and Pete Carroll talk, you say Spytek's the nicest guy you've ever met, well, then Pete Carroll's got to be a close number two. And the way that they are already interacting with each other, it kind of reminds me of like a big brother, little brother type of thing. But I know Carroll is a very well-regarded person in terms of what he's been able to do in Seattle for the draft. But at the end of the day, you brought in John Spytek to, I think, kind of recreate what he was able to do in Tampa Bay, even being able to bring in a guy like Tom Brady that ultimately got them a Super Bowl. But I think one of the biggest areas where the Raiders struggled the past few seasons is letting a guy, maybe just John Gruden, have the final say. Having a guy, like Josh McDaniels have the final say. I'm a big believer that both Carroll and Spytek bring a lot to the table, and maybe it's, a coin flip. But if it was up to me, I would allow John Spytek to build a roster because I've said it before in my videos on the Raiders Report on YouTube. The way that I think is very similar to the way John Spytek thinks, and I just want to win, and I think Spytek's going to help us do that.
Listen, people need to be aware, he was part of the culture there in Tampa with Tom Brady when they won a Super Bowl. Hence, I think a really big reason why he ended up with the Raiders because of Tom Brady and their relationship. Okay, with that said, Mitchell, Raiders on the clock at 6. Everybody's got them taking that Boise State running back, Ashton Genty. Do you?
If I was a betting man, I would say that Genty is the number one person most likely to get taken at number 6. But if I could sit down in a room with John Spytek, and I think if Spytek had to say, I think that he would want to go with offensive tackle Armin Membu. He has always said that he really values the trenches. And when you look at a player like Tristan Wirfs, who Spytek also drafted in round 1, fun little fact, out of all the offensive linemen to ever compete at the NFL Combine, only 4, Tristan Wirfs, Trent Williams, Will Campbell, and Armin Membu, over 300 pounds, run a sub 540-yard dash, and also had a 30-inch vertical. I know Spytek values the trenches. If it was up to me, I would go Membu. But I do think that they love Genty. I know that for a fact that they love Genty. And when they went out to meet him at Boise State at the Pro Day, the Raiders were the only team that took their running back coach and GM Spytek. And then after the Pro Day, they went out for dinner with the Boise State head coach, Genty. And from everybody that I talked to, that dinner went really well. And
you talked about being a betting man. You could wager that the Raiders are taking Genty at 6, and you could get that at -125 on ESPN Bet. Just throwing that out there. Mitchell, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. Thank you for your time, my friend.
Anita, thank you so much. And I love the Brock Bowers shirt. I see a lot of times you rock these 6'6" shirts, and I was like, all right, I'm not going to wear it because I didn't want to take away, but love the show, love what you bring to the table, and if you ever need a guest at any time talk Raiders, please keep me in mind.
I appreciate it. Big shout out to 500 Level, who's our sponsor. Appreciate you mentioning that. Have fun on Thursday night.
Oh, we will definitely have fun. If anybody wants to tune in, we had over 300,000 people join last year. We were live for 21 hours at Chat Sports, so pull up if you're rocking silver and black. It's going to be a party.
Love it. All right, Connor, so now we're sitting at 7, and it's the Jets. You and I both are here in the New York, New Jersey area, right? A lot of drama surrounding this team. They've got to get this pick right.
Yeah, so this is interesting, Anita, because Mason Graham's off the board, Armand Membu is off the board. Both those players have been connected to the Jets. I think it's Tyler Warren in this spot. There's some rumblings Aaron Glenn could look to add to the defense. They better check this offense on paper. It needs help right now. Justin Fields needs help. They still need a right tackle. They'll target that on day 2. They like their running backs. They have Garrett Wilson. They have no other reliable pass catcher after Garrett Wilson. I think Tyler Warren is one of their favorite players on their entire board. He helps the run game. He helps the pass game. Lock in Tyler Warren at number 7.
Yeah, listen, again, a number of conversations I've had with I had one scout tell me they feel that Tyler Warren's the best player in this draft. I think a big reason is we saw what Brock Bowers was able to do with the Raiders last year, right? And how he was able to come in and have that type of athleticism and really catapult an offense to an unbelievable level. Do you think that has a lot? You think the Brock Bowers effect is having a lot in regard to the love affair that we're hearing as we get closer to the draft for Warren?
It definitely helps. Now, I'll say Bowers is probably the best tight end prospect we're going to see potentially in our lifetimes. He was just that special, but Warren is also that good. Him and Loveland in this draft are special tight end prospects in their own way. Warren is bigger than Bowers, where you trust him a little bit more on the line of scrimmage. Is he as smooth as a pass catcher? No, not a lot of people will be in Bowers' tier with that, but Warren is one of the most physical middle-of-the-field presences you'll ever see. He even mentioned this to me at the Combine. Jeremy Shockey is a player he really likes. He reminds me of Jeremy Shockey, who was an electric threat for the Giants for a while. I think that he is a very, very similar presence.
Well, we both know Rich Cimini. He's covered the Jets for several years. Let's check in with him. Who does he have the Jets selecting at 7? All right, Rich, so the Jets are sitting there at 7, and there are a lot of people who think that Tyler Warren, the tight end, is going to go to the Jets. And by the way, I've spoken to a number of scouts. I had one scout tell me, Rich, that they felt that Tyler Warren is the best player in this draft, even better than Travis Hunter. Are you buying that?
No, I don't think he's better than Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, but he is a really good player. The Jets do like him a lot. They had him in for a visit at their facility, a top 30 visit. It is a big need for the Jets. They lost Tyler Conklin. They need a starting tight end. So it would not surprise me at all if they picked him.
And by the way, you could wager that they do take Tyler Warren at 7, and that's at plus 280. But also, as we know, they need some help at offensive line. If Mimbu is still available at 7, take us into that war room. What type of conversation do you think is going to be had if Mimbu and Warren are still on the board at 7?
Yeah, that would be a very interesting one, Anita. I mean, Membu's a really good player. He is a pure right tackle, like a natural right tackle, and that's exactly what the Jets need. And so then you're weighing positional value, best player available, all that sort of stuff. And another guy, not to dismiss here, if we're on the subject of tackle, but a name I've been hearing over the last week or so is Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. Their left tackle, I think, is also in the decision here for the Jets. So I do think Membu could be gone. If he's not, and if all three of these guys are still on the board, that'll be a fascinating decision for the Jets. I honestly think, I don't know which way they would go. That's a really tough call. I think it could be between Warren and Banks, to be quite honest.
All right, well, you're on this show because I'm putting you on the hot seat, Rich. So at 7, put on your GM hat. Who do you believe the Jets will choose?
Well, I mean, is Membu still there? I mean, you got to give me a little help here. I think they ultimately could go with Tyler Warren. I think they need another weapon in this offense. They have Garrett Wilson, but they need a number 2 passing option to really help out Justin Fields. If they're going to give all this opportunity for Justin Fields, you got to give him a chance, right? You can't have one weapon out there in Garrett Wilson. So I think when push comes to shove, Tyler Warren, just because of his, best player available, and he does fill a need.
Fantastic. Rich, appreciate your time. Enjoy Thursday night. All right, so now we're sitting at 8. Carolina's there. Impressed me this past season. Didn't expect them to play as well as they did. Who do you see Carolina taking at 8?
They're looking on the defensive side of the ball with this pick here, Anita. They want to help their defense. They want to help the middle of their defense. They spent some money on defensive line and free agency. Now they're going to get a player that can play in the front 7, both off the ball and on the ball, in Jalen Walker, the linebacker from Georgia, who he can help you in the middle of the field on first and second downs, and he can rush the passer a little bit on third downs as well. Walker gets rave reviews from everybody around that program, and for the Panthers, this is a new leader in the middle of their defense.
And then at 9, the Saints are sitting there. This is the other team as well. Many people feel Shedeur Sanders could land on, especially with the reports of what's going on with Derek Carr and his injury, wink, wink. What do you have the Saints doing at 9?
So I think this is Shedeur's best shot to go in the top 10, but I still can't get all the way there. I have them going with Kelvin Banks, the left tackle from Texas, 3-year starter from ages 18, 19, and 20, which is impressive at that program. Banks is going earlier in this draft than people realize. They took Taliza Fuanga last year, who plays on the left side of their offensive line, and then Banks can be either left tackle or left guard, while Fuanga could be either their left tackle or left guard. All I know is those two are going to be a dynamite run-blocking combination. The Saints need to get back to running the football and helping their trenches. Once again, Banks is going in the top 15 of this draft, in my opinion.
Very interesting. So if you have him going in the top 10, you could wager that at plus 150, Connor. You have him going 9 to the Saints. It's 6-1. Those are the odds. 6-1. Hang tight. Let's go to the Big Easy. We have Nick Underhill from NewOrleans.football joining us to find out who he thinks the Saints are going to be taking with their selection. All right, Nick, we need to find out what the Saints are going to be doing at 9. Nobody has their finger on the pulse of this team better than you. But before we get your pick and who you think the Saints are going to select, talk to us about Derek Carr. What's the situation with his injury, and do you expect him to be quarterbacking for the Saints next season?
No, I think this is probably it for him. I mean, he wanted out earlier this offseason, and, you know, it's an interesting situation. He was fine on March 8th when the restructure happened, and there's no better evidence of that than the fact that he was trying to get released and or traded, which means he would have had to go somewhere else and get a physical. So somewhere between March 8th and early April, something happened. The word is it's an old AC joint injury. But it is hard not to wonder if this isn't like when Jalen Ramsey wanted to get traded and he was hurt, and then he got traded and he was okay enough to play. I feel like if you change the black and gold to maybe Giants blue or Pittsburgh black and yellow, maybe that shoulder is good enough to play. So I think he's probably done here. I think he should be done here. And, you know, you got a new coach trying to establish a new culture. A guy that isn't all in is probably better to be all out somewhere else.
So obviously this could be a Saints team looking for an answer at quarterback. And a lot of times what we see in the NFL is a new head coach comes in. He likes to align himself with a rookie quarterback that he could groom and develop and progress and hopefully create a winning culture in the Big Easy. With that being said, what do you expect the Saints to do at 9?
I think they're going to take probably the best available offensive tackle if the price makes sense. I think that's how they want to build this team right now. Trevor Penning's in the last year of his deal. He was just okay at right tackle last year. Fuaga had to play on the left side. I think they want to get Fuaga back on the right side where he's more natural. And I think maybe Kelvin Banks, or I know people that follow the draft are going to think this one sounds crazy, but I wouldn't be even shocked by Josh Connerly, the Oregon tackle. Mel Kiper has him as like his fifth best tackle. I wouldn't be shocked by him as a pick at 9. So I'm kind of looking at one of those two guys and then maybe a trade up into the back half of the first round to get that rookie quarterback. And I think it'd be Tyler Shuck.
Interesting. So there are a number of people that expect Shedeur Sanders to end up in New Orleans. You don't see that happening.
I could be the biggest idiot in the room right now saying this 2 days before the draft, but I say no way at 9, and I think if he's sitting there at 40, he wouldn't be the pick. I just do not think that they are interested in drafting him. Could be a huge smokescreen, but I don't know. I've been covering this team for more than a decade, and it would be the biggest surprise that I've ever had covering this team just based on some of the information that's out there right now.
Interesting. Nick, thank you so much. Appreciate your time joining us on our draft preview show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so here we are. Let's round out the top 10. It's Chicago. Boy, what offensively, they needed some offensive line help. They addressed that in free agency. Who do you have the Bears taking at 10?
So we didn't do any trades in this mock draft, which means nobody moved up for Ashton Jeanty, which for the Bears, this is a dream scenario where Jeanty falls into their lap at 10. I don't know if he's going to get there, Anita. It feels like he is a very hot commodity as the draft phones are picking up leading up to the big event. But if he's there at 10, he has to be the pick. He is the third best player in this draft. Ben Johnson comes over from Detroit, where they know a thing or two about drafting a running back early, Jahmyr Gibbs, and running the rock. So I think when it comes down to it, Jeanty would now be the new face of Chicago's offense.
Wow, and how exciting would that be with Caleb Williams, Jeanty, their wide receiving
Rome
core,
Odunze from last year. Yeah, it's a good-looking group.
Which would really, really be spectacular. By the way, if Jeanty falls to 10 and lands in the lap of the Chicago Bears, plus 425, plus
wow.
425. A few other things I want to touch on with you before we let you go. And I'm gonna jump all the way down to, in your mock draft, number 19. I'm gonna butcher his last name. I apologize.
Ezaraku. You got it, Anita.
Donovan, thank you. Donovan Ezaraku.
Yeah.
The edge rusher from Boston College. I had a few scouts tell me that they feel that he is the steal of this draft, that he's going to be a complete stud. For him to fall all the way to 19 and go to the Tampa Bay Bucks, I'd say that's a steal.
Yeah, the Bucks would be thrilled with this. He's just got to get there. It feels like the Bucks are all over defense at any level in this draft. They could take an edge rusher, a linebacker, or a corner in this spot. They've done a lot of work on Ezaraku. They would love to get a pure pass rusher for Todd Bowles' front.
At number 29, you have the second running back going, of course, Hampton, running back from North Carolina. Why do you have him? A number of people have him going even earlier than 29. Many people feel that both these running backs are going to go in the first round.
Yeah, so he starts at Dallas at 12, could take him feasibly. Denver at 20, there's some noise about that, although I've heard mixed opinions on that. In this situation, he fell to 29, and man, would the Commanders be getting a steal. The fact that their backfield would have the running ability of Jaden Daniels, obviously the power and physicality of Amari and Hampton in this slot, and he could catch the ball, and he could protect the passer as well. He's very, very good in pass protection. So a physical workhorse running back for them at 29. Once again, like Genty at 10, I don't know if Hampton makes it to 29, but somebody has to fall on draft day. He will not fall further than this.
So very interesting, Connor. You only have one quarter, like based on your mock draft. And again, I know we're not equating potential trade partners, right? But you only have one quarterback going in the first round. You don't have Sanders going. You don't have Jackson Dart. We haven't even talked about Jackson Dart.
I think when you look at it, if there were trades in this mock draft, I think somebody will come back into end of round one for Shedeur Sanders. I think team or Jackson Dart. I think teams looking to maybe swoop in if the cost was low. The Giants could do that for a quarterback, and I feel like the Giants field is really wide. It could be Shedeur, it could be Dart, it could be Milroe. The Browns need to add a quarterback as well. Are they keeping tabs on that situation? You obviously look at the Steelers with the Aaron Rodgers chase. They're in a very, very odd place right now, but ultimately, I think they're going to get a deal done with Rodgers. And then maybe 9 was too rich for the Saints, but maybe the Saints find a way to make a move as well. But if I'm not making trades, I can't find a landing spot for Shedeur Sanders in round 1. That might shock people, but I think this has been building for a little while now.
So very interesting. You could wager that less than 2.5 quarterbacks would be taken in the first round.
I'd be on that.
Plus 105. It sounds like you were more on the under than the over.
It happens every single year. Remember just a couple years ago, we heard that Will Levis was going to go in the first round, and then he slid, and that affected the number of quarterbacks in round 1. The year Kenny Pickett was the only round 1 quarterback, people thought Malik Willis or Desmond Ridder could go in round 1 as well. They always overproject the amount of quarterbacks that go in the first round. So I think at the end of the day, would it shock me if a second one gets in through a trade? Probably Shedeur. No, it wouldn't shock me at all. Or Dart. It could be one of the two. But at 3, that would require 2 trades if things go how I think they will. I think that's going to kind of teeter towards minus money over the next 24 hours.
I have one last one that I'm going to throw your way. And this is, again, the conversations I've had with another number of scouts getting ready for the draft. Isaiah Bond, wide receiver from Texas, 5'11", 180. He's a mud bug. He's a smurf, as a lot of people like to call those small little wide receivers. But ran a 4.39 40, and I had not one but 2 scouts use the analogy of Tyreek Hill. You could wager that Isaiah Bond is going to go in the first round at 50-1. Any shot on that, Connor?
It happens with speed, and he's got it. And it's not just the 4.39 40, because the play speed is insane. The problem with Bond leading up to the draft is he's had some off-the-field stuff pop up, and teams might be looking at it and going, we don't need to use a first-rounder on him. We can get him falling because of that. So Bond has become one of the more interesting players in this draft. If you asked me last summer where I think he would go, I thought he was a surefire first-rounder. With the year he's had, maybe he was banged up, some of the off-the-field stuff, I could see him falling out of the first 2 rounds now.
Connor, you rock, man. It's so great. I love doing this with you. I'm so pumped. Really excited for Thursday night. I feel like I'm more in the know now that we've had this discussion. Hopefully our listeners and our viewers are as well. I appreciate you, my friend.
Oh,
Enjoy the draft.
Thanks so much, Anita. It's always so much fun talking to you and doing this stuff, so I appreciate you having me on, and we'll catch up after the draft.
Thank you. I want to thank Connor so much. I do have another special guest for you from the Philadelphia Eagles. Why? Because the Philadelphia Eagles always crush the draft with Howie Roseman. But before we do, another big shout out to our sponsor, 500 Level, iconic original graphic tees. 500 Level, live like a legend. They immortalize the legends of the game, and hopefully, by the way, these rookies will become legends. So just another reminder, as soon as your team drafts that rookie, head over to 500 Level, 500level.com, and I'm sure they will be printing your rookie's t-shirt. You want to get it? Use my code MARKS20 for 20% off. Want to give a big shout out as well to Naira Bets. We've got an exciting Kentucky Derby preview show coming your way next week, and Naira Bets is sponsoring that show. Bet the Kentucky Derby and experience the thrill of the sport of kings with Naira Bets horse racing app. Fast, easy, and secure. Get your free $25 Derby bet plus a $200 deposit match at nairabets.com/Anita25. And definitely stay tuned, of course, for that Derby show. And last but not least, Batch Cookies and Cream. Head to their website, batchcookies.cream.com. Small family-owned bake shop, 2 locations in Long Island and Bedford Hills. The most fun is getting a box of cookies that is complete surprise. Each box is baked fresh by hand and mailed out within 48 hours. All right, without further ado, let's take you out to Philadelphia. We have Dave Spadaro, who's going to be joining us. He is part of the Eagles broadcast team. And the reason we have him on, again, is because the Eagles and Howie Roseman crushes the draft each and every year. Dave, does he not?
You know, Anita, the great thing about Howie Roseman is that you always expect something, but you never know where it's coming from, when it's going to hit you. Last year, the Eagles, they stayed pat in rounds 1 and 2, and they get Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Boom, and then they start making deals. So if history serves as any sort of a lesson, 2018, after the Eagles win the Super Bowl, they're sitting there at 32. They trade out of the first round to Baltimore. Baltimore goes and gets Lamar Jackson. The Eagles end up with Dallas Goedert, Avonte Maddox, and Miles Sanders from next year's draft, the following year's draft. All 3 of those players helped the Eagles make the Super Bowl in the 2022 season. And of course, Maddox and Goddard were part of the Super Bowl 59 team. So I think that Howie is always looking for the most value in every position that he has, every asset that he holds. And so when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, you have to take into account and kind of provide the whole context. What did they do in this offseason? They retained Zach Bond. They signed Juergens and Lane Johnson to long-term contracts. To extensions. They sweetened the deal for Saquon Barkley. They've got 9 players making $15 million or more this year. So, and they signed then a bunch of players to 1-year deals. So they really feel like they come into the draft well stocked at every position, so they don't have to reach for a spot. So what do they do at 32? It all depends on how the first 25 picks go, as I see it. Last year, 6 of the first 12 were quarterbacks. The first 14 were offensive players. And that allowed Howie and the Eagles to sit pat. This year, Anita, your guess is as good as mine. But I do agree with you. The value of this draft is in the mid-rounds, and that's where the Eagles hold a lot of the cards.
Yeah, it's really, it is unbelievable. I just feel like each and every year on that Monday when we're doing the draft recap, the Eagles always getting the A-, A+ from all the analysts in regard to how well that front office does. Before we let you go, there are some reports out there that the Eagles are looking to trade Dallas Goedert. And coinciding with that, there are a number of mock drafts that have the Eagles drafting one of the top 3 or 4 tight ends. I had a scout tell me that this is the best tight end draft class they've ever seen. So before we let you go, your thoughts? You think Dallas Goedert gets traded at some point in time throughout the draft? And do you feel that the Eagles will have a new tight end on their roster who might be a rookie?
I think anything is always possible with Howie. My inclination is that Dallas stays a Philadelphia Eagle. The Eagles signed 2 tight ends in free agency. It takes 2 to tango. They like Dallas Goedert a lot. He's been bothered, of course, by injuries. I'm going to lean on the deal is not made through the draft weekend. But again, with Howie Roseman, do you ever really know? He's always working the phones, always looking to upgrade the roster. And tight end is certainly a position, as everyone has talked about, to keep an eye on for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Absolutely. Dave, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And why don't you let folks know, Eagle fans out there, where will you be draft night? How can they follow all that the Eagles will be doing?
Yeah, everything is on PhiladelphiaEagles.com. Of course, throughout our social channels, we are killing it in our social media. So the Philadelphia Eagles will keep everyone at the NovaCare Complex in South Philly. When you're picking 32, no real reason to go out to Green Bay. Everything is done here at the corporate offices, the practice facilities. So it's going to be a buzz this weekend, but we're going to have to wait a while, and that's exciting for the Philadelphia Eagles.
I love it. Dave, enjoy it.
Thanks, Anita.
All right, I want to thank Dave for joining us, as well as Connor Rogers and the plethora of beat reporters that joined us on the program. Again, hopefully you are locked and loaded for Thursday night. And again, a big shout out, of course, to our sponsors, 500 Level, Naira Bets, as well as Batch Cookies and Cream. Again, a reminder, next week, Kentucky Derby, we are going to get you locked and loaded for that race and hopefully win you a ton of money. We'll see you then.